Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to start a thread here in the vinyl community on YouTube, and I wanted to talk about records that we had growing up as a kid, some records that we remember from when we were little, kind of sharing some of the memories that we had, growing up with all the different music and stories and things like that we had on vinyl. So I grew up in the 80s, and from the very early age, I remember having records all the time and then slowly working my way into cassette tapes. So I just wanted to go through some records here and show you guys what some of the ones were that I grew up with. Now, pretty much all of the records that I had growing up, they were very well used and abused, and they ended up getting, sold or thrown away or things like that. So pretty much all of these are ones that I have found online, eBay and things like that, or at other sales and things that I remembered from my childhood, and I wanted to have them back in my collection to share with my kids. So first of all, I'm going to start off with some of these here. I remember listening to these record storybooks a lot when I was little. This is one that I really remember listening to a lot. It's Walt Disney Mother Goose rhymes. These have the record in the back. You put the record on and then it has a little chime or something after each page. It tells you when to turn the page, and then you just follow along with the story as it reads it to you. It's really a fun way to read the story, have the story read to you, and things like that. It's really fun. This was one of my favorites, so I wanted to try and find this, and I actually did find this in really good shape, so it's good to have that back. Some more that I had, as you can tell, I was into the Masters of the Universe growing up. So I had several of these Masters of the Universe. Here we have Caverns of Fear. These were really fun. They had a lot of the sound effects and battle scenes and things like that. You can just really immerse yourself in the stories. It was really fun to listen to these. Now this one here and this one are two that I remember really well growing up. I listened to these a lot. And then when I found these, there was a couple other storybooks that were being sold along with those two. I never had this one or this one, but it was cool to have those and add them to the collection as well. So those are really fun. As far as 12-inch records, this is one that I don't remember where I ever got it. I'm sure my parents just bought it for me at a store or something like that, but this is a 2-record set. It's just each side of the record has a story. This one here you can see is Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and it's on RCA Records for some reason. I don't know if they got the rights to the Walt Disney stories or things like that. And there's Peter and the Wolf here on one of them. That one I remember listening to quite a bit. But the main one that I really remember listening to was this story titled Long Name No Can Say. It's a Chinese fable about a Chinese mother who loved her son so much that she wanted to give him the longest name that she could think of, and nobody in the village could ever remember his name, so they just called him Long Name No Can Say. It's a really fun story, and that's actually one that I did play just recently to my son, and he thought it was pretty funny as well. So it's kind of nice to pass that story on to him and let him enjoy it as well. Here's another one I had. It's Songs That Tickle Your Funny Bone. Just a whole record full of short little silly songs. And I remember listening to this quite a bit. And there's just a lot of good memories associated with this record as well. And as you can tell, some of these are probably not on like high-end labels or anything like that. They're just cheap records put out for kids to enjoy. And now, as far as receiving records, there's only one, well, there's two here, but there's actually only one time I actually remember getting records from my parents. And I remember waking up Christmas morning, one Christmas day, and under the tree, there was two 12-inch square presents for me to open. And when I opened them up, it was The first one was this Disney's Children's Favorites. There's 29 of their best loved songs. This is volume 2, it says. There's some things about your childhood you just remember. I remember all the artwork on this record, and this is one that I actually just picked up recently. I found it, it still had the shrink wrap on it and everything. It was really nice. And then the second record I had under the tree was the volume 3. There's 27 songs here. And again, when I purchased those, they had volume 1 in there with it. I never had volume 1 growing up. I don't think so anyway. I don't remember this artwork or anything like that, but it's nice to have the complete set of the Disney's children's favorite songs. So yeah, there's that one. And of course, as most kids probably had growing up, I remember I had the Chipmunks Christmas album. I'm sure most of you all out there had this one. This is obviously a reissue here. It's got the foil artwork on it and stuff like that, but that's another good memory there. And then also along with Christmas time, during Christmas we played this one constantly, John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together. Just a lot of great songs on here. I still listen to this one every year. This is a really good album. Really enjoy that one. And now one thing I do remember, getting a little bit older, watching TV and things like that, I do remember they had advertisements on TV for records you could buy, records and cassettes. There were things you could purchase off TV for, $19.99 or whatever it was. This is, I think, the only one that I ever actually did get off the television. My parents ordered this one for me. I was too young to order anything online, but this is actually the original one that I had. It was probably when I was 12, 13 maybe. But it's 4 records, just a lot of old 50s songs on there. So even, back then I was still already into the classic rock and roll music. And surprisingly, I must have taken really good care of these because they're still in really good shape. I'm sure they're a little bit scratchy, but I don't know, that's just one record that I've always hung on to. I just thought it was really cool to have, 42 original hits. A lot of really great songs on there. But even before that, I was a little bit younger. My brother and we shared a room, and we had a turntable on the dresser. And I think I've probably showed this one and the next one in a couple other videos maybe. But this is a record I'm sure my parents had bought somewhere. Maybe they bought it off the television as well. And somehow it ended up in our room, and we played it quite a bit. I remember there was just so many skips on this record. A lot of the songs that were on here, when I hear the songs today, I know right where the skips were in the record. It's kind of funny, but I did manage to find, this was a sealed copy I found online, but it's a Keitel 25 rock revival greats, original stars, original hits. There's just a lot of great songs on here. I just remember loving this artwork on here. I love the old Wurlitzer jukebox on there. It's very cool. Just a lot of really good songs on here too. And I remember when I was listening to this record all the time, I always thought, man, I really want one of these record holders. You just flip the records and they flip through the records automatically. I thought that would have been so cool to have. But yeah, just a lot of great songs on there. And then this one here too, this is the one that I originally grew up with. I still have this copy. This is the one that got me into the Beatles. I've shown this on a couple other videos, I think, but a lot of Beatles fans don't really care for this album, but this is the album that got me hooked on the Beatles when I was very young. Their 20 greatest hits. And I always loved listening to this record and then looking at the inner sleeve here while I was listening to the music. It's really cool. So I'm thankful to my parents for getting me into the Beatles with this record. So yeah, those are a bunch of the records that I had growing up. Of course, when you get a little bit older, you kind of get kind of nostalgic, and then you start buying records that kind of remind you of your childhood. And I know one of my favorite movies growing up was The Wizard of Oz, so I definitely had to get the soundtrack to The Wizard of Oz. I think my mom actually had an original Wizard of Oz soundtrack, but then I found this. I think this was a 75th anniversary edition that I picked up. There's a lot of great memories with that movie. And then we also used to watch The Wonder Years quite a lot growing up. I really loved that show. And this is a lot of the tracks that were featured in the series. A lot of good memories with that show too. Then of course we used to watch Sesame Street when I was little, so I got this compilation of songs that were featured on Sesame Street. I really enjoyed the Abbey Road parody on the front. Just a lot of great Sesame Street songs on there that I remember from when I was growing up with classic Sesame Street in the 80s. This was a movie kind of I think it was in the 90s was when this movie came out. Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan in Space Jam. I remember watching that movie quite a bit growing up too. So I remember a lot of those songs in there. And then as I got a little bit older, we got cable TV. So we had Nickelodeon. It was one of the kids channels that was featured on cable TV back then. And I found this the best of Nicktoons. These were a lot of the cartoons that I watched growing up. We got Rocko's Modern Life and Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy. There's a lot of great. And then it's also got a lot of the different musical commercial bits that were featured on Nickelodeon at the time too, in between a lot of the tracks. So that kind of brings back some memories too. And then when this show first came out, I was into it quite a bit. Not so much anymore. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do remember a lot of the songs on this one. It's a SpongeBob SquarePants album. I think there's only 7 songs on there, but so yeah, those are a lot of the memories that I had growing up, watching TV, movies, listening to records and things like that. And now as I'm much older, I have 2 sons of my own, and they've kind of been getting into some different shows and things like that. So I've kind of been buying some albums and records that maybe they'll enjoy. So one of the earliest ones I got was, this is the Lego Movie soundtrack. You know, they're really into Legos and they love the Lego Movie, so I got the soundtrack here. It's got a couple picture. I think this is a Record Store Day issue. It's got 2 picture discs. It's got some of the characters from the film on there. This is pretty neat. And then they were into Thomas the Tank Engine early on. So here's I think there's a story on one side and then a bunch of songs on the other side they can listen to. And how long was it ago now? It's been quite a few years ago now that the first Frozen film came out. They were, and they still are, really into the Frozen movie. So I got the soundtrack to the first film here. And then just, was it last year or the year before, they came out with the sequel, so I had to get the sequel to Frozen. We got Frozen 2 here. We end up listening to that quite a bit. And of course, there was a Record Store Day Frozen single that I decided to pick up for them. Got a couple songs from the first film on there. And then another song, movie that both my kids and my wife and I actually kind of enjoy the music on these. We got the Trolls albums. We got the first and the second film. We got the albums here. We listen to these quite a bit, actually. They actually request listening to these a lot of the time in the evening. So that's fun to listen to. And the one that just came out maybe a month or so ago, they used to watch this show quite a bit. I don't know if we have this, we can get this show anymore, but Paw Patrol, I think there's just 4 songs on this single here, but I thought that was pretty cool. They really enjoy that one too. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to start this thread in the vinyl community. I kind of interested to see what all you guys out there enjoyed listening to, if you have any of the records that you grew up with. So if you decide to make a video, please let me know in the comments below, and I can go over to your channel and check it out and kind of go through some of your early childhood memories as well. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.